Earlier in this Farbrengen, the Rebbe was talking about the idea. It's a Farbrengen from Tafshin Zion from the 5th of Nisan, and the Rebbe was talking about the concept that there is the Torah was given with 5 koilos. It says that there was the sound of the shofar and the sound of the lightning, etc., and the thunder, and so on. And in Sheva Brachas, it also speaks about Chamisha Koilos over there. Meheira Yishama Bar Yehuda Koil Chosam Koil Kalo Koil Yitzadina. It talks about 5 Koilos. The Chazal connect them the two. The Rebbe explains it according to Chassidus that the number 5 indicates the 5 levels of Nefesh, Ruach, Neshama, Chaya, Yechida. Yechida goes on the ultimate highest level of all levels that have to come down and has to be joined with the other 4. Yechida has to do with Yachid, and that Yachid comes down by Matan Torah, that the 5th level joins with the 4. So that's why in that bracha we speak the 5 sounds, and that's why Matan Torah there was the 5 sounds, as we'll soon explain, that also Chosn and Kala is also about the number 5, the 5th level, the Yechida coming down. So he says at the bottom of the page over here, similar vein also is concerning a chos and kala and dim lahaskal seder chod b'chayim. Chos and kala are about to start a new order in life. Lahakim bayis b'Yisrael, to establish a home in amongst Yidden. Binyan adiyad, an everlasting building. The doida is for generations and generations. And the idea that one establishes a home for multiple generations, that we're beginning a process of many generations, this explains that this is a manifestation of Hashem's infinite power. In other words, just like by Matan Torah, we have to have the joining of the number 5 with the other 4, because we're having the infinite Hashem's essence, the Yachid of Hashem coming down. The same thing when we're building an everlasting building that's going to be generations after generations, that has not the power of the infinite. How is the power of procreation, which is infinite, how does that come down into the physical world? That's through Hashem's infinite power. So for that need, yesh tzorach ba'avodah damshachas bechinas yichida lechashru lechabrem aldal bechinas nefesh ruach neshama chaya yichida. Chaya. There's the need to draw down the yichida, the highest of the 5 levels, and to join it with the 4 levels of Nefesh, Ruach, Neshama, Chai. Now we're going to get into the Simcha. So, Gamma Inyan, the Simcha's Chosn Daf. It says, whoever is Mesameach Chosn V'Kala, whoever makes a Chosn V'Kala rejoice, he merits the 5 sounds that says by Matan Torah. So what's so special about Simcha's Chosn V'Kala? Kibush Simcha Peretz is together. Since Simcha breaks through barriers, therefore, it's able and it accomplishes the revelation of that Yechida. Yechida is such a high level that's really beyond revelation. So how do we bring that forth? Simcha breaks through that level, to the degree how much it's possible to have the idea of revelation. Though on its own, Yechida usually remains concealed, but the Simcha brings it forth. Then, concerning this, it says, we say in the bracha, rejoice, you shall rejoice, like the one who formed you rejoiced in Gan Eden Mikedem. Why does it say Mikedem? Mikedem, in the simple sense, means early on, early at the beginning of creation. But here, the Rebbe explains, Mikedem Daika, meaning from the earliest and highest most level. The Koy Alam Makar Arishon refers to the first source of everything, Shubechinos HaYichidam. So Yigamashayich is the Chosen, Torah. That's also the connection of a Chosen and a Torah that I mentioned before, that whoever is, that they compare the 5 sounds that were by Matan Torah, the Chamisha Koilos of Matan Torah, with the Chamisha Koilos that we speak about in the Sheva Brachas. The effect of joining the highest, most level of Yechida with the levels of Nefesh, Ruach, Neshama, Chayim, and the drawing down of the infinite of Hashem in the created beings, which is the idea of Matan Torah. In the Matan Torah, it's by the power of Matan Torah. The by Matan Torah, there was also the idea of the joining of above and below, and because of that, we are enabled and empowered to be able to bring the Yechida down to the other lower levels. So he says in Ois Beis over here, according to this, we could explain the reason for the fact. The reason why we mentioned the 5 sounds is specifically in the 7th of the 7 bracha of Shabbos, 7 brachas of Shabbos. It's the final bracha. The 7th bracha is the concluding bracha of all the 7 brachas. Therefore, it's recognizable in it and emphasized in it the ultimate purpose of marriage. To join the infinite, that level of Yechida with the limited level, the 4 levels of Nefesh, Ruch, and Shama. And when we join that, when we bring the infinite down, through that we build an everlasting building, an everlasting edifice, as they always say, whatever an edifice is. With a straight generation, with a generation of straight ones that are blessed. And the ultimate matter will be in the future time. The perfection of this, the ultimate joy and revelation will be when Mashiach comes. That's why we actually say in the bracha, Meheira Goymer Yishama Goymer Kalsasim Kalsimpa Meheira Yishama Viada Yehuda V'chol Tzeitir Shalayim Kal Sasem Kal Simcha. We are talking about Mashiach's time. Speedily it should be heard the sound of joy and the sound of happiness. How come? Because it goes in tandem with the revelation that's going to take place there. Since when Mashiach comes, the level of Yachid, which is Hashem's level, that is corresponding to our level of Yechidah. So that's what will shine when Mashiach comes. Then there'll be the revelation of Hashem's very essence without any garments. Like it says, that your master will not hide himself in a garment anymore. And your eyes will see your master. And this revelation of Hashem's essence, when Mashiach comes, will be revealed all the way down here below. Even to eyes of flesh. Like it says, it will be revealed and all flesh will see. Last paragraph. This is, we could also explain the reason that in the 7th bracha, that 7th bracha is mentioned about the 5 sounds. That we spoke about the 5 sounds as bringing down that highest, most level into the world. How do we conclude the bracha? We conclude it in the following words: the one who makes rejoice the chassan with the kal. It's not like in the 6th bracha. In the 6th bracha, we conclude he makes rejoice the chassan and the kala. What's the difference if you say with or we say and? So the Alter Rebbe says a very interesting difference in Torah, the Torah. Like the Alter Rebbe explains, Shalosh and the expression Mesameach Chassan V'Kala V'Vav, when it says he rejoices the Chassan and the Kala, and the letter that's used to indicate and is with a Vav. This indicates that the bride, the Kala, is only secondary, ancillary to the Chassan, and she is still receiving from it. That's what the word letter Vav in Lashon Kodesh means. It's and, it's also, it's in addition to. As opposed to the expression used at the conclusion of the final bracha, where it talks about the 5 sounds indicating Mashiach's times and so on. He makes rejoice the chassan with the kala. What does that with mean to say? That they are on the same level. Moira indicates sheshneim, that both of them shavim, that they're both the same. And the Rebbe goes on and says even more so. Not only are they both the same, but Yisedim is even more so. Shayidei hakala u'mesameach es hachasen, that through the kala he makes the chasen rejoice. Hainu shakala mashpia simcha b'chasen, that the kala influences and brings joy to the chasen. So in the 6th bracha, since it's not referring to that great revelation, the kala is still on the receiving end. But in the 7th bracha, which indicates the ultimate revelation, which will be when Mashiach comes, it speaks about the opposite, that the kala is the one that influences the chassan, and the kala brings joy to the chassan. The Rebbe explains, why is this so, that the kala will bring the joy to the chassan, and so on. This will be understood by first prefacing what's known. Hashem and the Jewish people are called a chassan and kala. Knesset Yisrael, the Jewish people are the kala, are the bride. The kabbalas makadosh baruch hu chassan. She receives from Hashem, who's her husband, her groom. All the matters that Jewish people are of need, they receive from Hashem. You say to them, even more so. We might think that there are certain things which Yidden do on their own. For example, Torah mitzvahs. Torah mitzvahs, it says, everything is in the hand of heaven except for the fear of heaven. So Torah mitzvahs might be something I'm bringing to the table. So the Rebbe says no. Even matters of Torah mitzvahs. That's accomplished and done through the avodah of Yidden. They receive from Hashem. Who gives Hashem? Who gives the Yidden the capability and the power to be able to fulfill the mitzvahs? That's also received from Hashem. So I can't really say that I am the one that's bringing the mitzvahs to the table. Hashem gave me the capability to do the mitzvahs. It's a medrash, like it's brought down the medrash al pasuk. And the pasuk it says, "Mi hikdimani v'ashal." It says in Iyov, he says, "Who preceded me?" In other words, who came before me, and who gave me something, and I'll pay him. In other words, what it means to say is that nobody preceded Hashem. And the Medrash explains a very interesting thing. Mi asali mezuzah achloin asatale bayis. Who went and did this, you will favor for me and made for me a mezuzah. He wasn't able to make a mezuzah until I gave him a home. So there's nothing that I can do that didn't happen when Hashem first giving me the wherewithal. I know this means Shakadosh Baruch Hu Nasmlei Bayis. Hashem gave him a home. Nasmlei Mammon Liknis Mezuzah, and Hashem gave him money to purchase a mezuzah. And Nasmlei Kayach Shiyuch Lekvayis a mezuzah, and he gave him the capability and the strength to be able to hang the mezuzah. Still in all, despite the fact that Yidden are called a kal, they are on the receiving end from Hashem, who is their chassan. Bafal became still in all, like days, Bnei Yisrael Mekayim some mitzvahs through Yidden fulfilling the mitzvahs, poilim meim nachas ruch l'maylo. They affect a pleasure above. Like we said, that the kala affects joy in the chassan. Maimon Hazal, the Chazal say, nachas ruch l'fanai, pleasing spirit before me. John Marty Benasser Tzayni, that Hashem says, I said, I asked the Yidden to do something and my will was fulfilled. When my will is fulfilled after my request, that pleases me. So it comes out that the Yidden please Hashem. This means to say as follows. Though the very fact that the Jewish people fulfill the will of Hashem through the fulfillment of Torah mitzvahs, who is by the capability of Hashem. Call Makim still in all. Days that through the fact that they are the ones that fulfill the will. In actuality, it's not Hashem that puts up the mezuzah, it's the Yid that's putting up the mezuzah. So regardless of the fact that Hashem is the one that gave him the home and gave him the money to be able to purchase the mezuzah and gave him the energy to be able to put up the mezuzah, still in all, by them putting up the mezuzah, they affect something that pleases Hashem. Okay, do as it's known by the milu arotz and nasa initial time through fulfilling someone's will, that causes delight. This delight is only when someone else fulfills a person's will. This means if a person's own hand or foot fulfills what he wants, there's nothing unique about it. The person is not pleased with himself. My hand reached for a cup of water I wanted. Only when fulfilling of his will happens through another, especially when the other person feels himself as a separate entity. Not that he's just like totally bottled, but the less bottled he is, the more independent the other is. And still in all, despite his independence, he is still going ahead and fulfilling the will of the person that asked him to do. It's a goyim nachas ruach. This causes a pleasant spirit for the one that's on the receiving end of the will. So too concerning the Jewish people, when the neshama that was in Gan Eden descends down here below in this world, and they sense and feel themselves as a separate entity, as someone that's independent. Despite the fact that the Yid is independent, they're fulfilling his will, and it's a goyim nachas ruach gadol b'yoser. It causes a great delight for Hashem. Like it's known also the example of the idea of kingship, that there's no king without a nation. Specifically has to be a nation, and Sidus explains a nation indicates that it's something separate from the king. If it's ministers or if it's children, you can't be a king. You can only be a king on a nation of people that's separate, from extinguished coals, that they're not seen as being part of fire, to something separate. This means, though this very thing itself should be while they are a separate entity. They fulfill his will. That itself, the capability to do so, even though they're separate, this itself, they are empowered from above to be able to fulfill his will despite the fact that they're independent. Despite that, their actual fulfilling of the will, it causes a delight above. Imsa comes out, though Neshams Yisrael considered receivers, they are a level of a kala to Hashem, and Hashem is their chosen. They are gam poilim kiviyachol amayla v'chinas mashpia. They are so too. They are also, as if to say, affecting above in their mashpia. Valderech Maimer Hazal, similar to what the Chazal say, mitalmida yoser mikulam, that the Rab that teaches his students gets more from his students than what he studied on his own, he says in the parentheses, or more than he studied from his teachers, or even more than what he studied from his colleagues. Still in all, from his students, he receives even more. Let's skip over the parentheses to his dal. This idea that the Yid affect Hashem above through their service is will be revealed when Mashiach comes. Behind this means now we don't see in a revealed way how the Jewish people are in a way of mashpia above. Avalos, but in the future, will be fulfilled the promise that the glory of Hashem will become revealed. Then they will see, or all will see in a revealed way, the great delight and pleasantness that occurs above. Through the avodah of the Yidden, fulfillment of mitzvahs. This is what it says in the pasuk. Yismach Havaya b'maisa. Havaya will rejoice in those that he made in the Jewish people. Jala'asid lavi, in the future time. Yismach lashon asid, where it says Yismach, it's talking in the future tense. Then yiru as simcha v'atayin shalomayla. Then all will see the joy and the delight above. HaKadosh Baruch Hu sameach b'maisav, that Hashem rejoices in the ones who He made in the Jewish people. Omnam k'dei sheyeh inyan yismach havai b'maisav. Sheneshamos Yisrael. Po'ilim simcha l'mayla, so that it should be able to be in the future, that it should be revealed that Hashem's joy in the Yidden, that the Yidden affect the joy above. So now there has to be the avodah of Neshamas Yisrael, that they are now receiving. What does it mean to be a receiver now? So it says, a receiver is someone that puts aside entirely their being. They're standing in the ultimate bittul of a receiver. In such a way of total devotion to godliness, to fulfill His will. Through this total devotion of being a makabel and totally devoted to Hashem to fulfill His will, that will bring about Yisgala loss and love will become revealed in the future. This bit and this accepting of the yoke of Neshamas Yisrael, this cause and influence that there should be the joy above. So now, how do we affect that? What brings us to that state? So when we have to bring out Simcha, Midah Keneged Midah, we have to be in a state of joy. That's why, as an introduction, before we could reach the level, to be able to reach the level of Hashem rejoicing in the Jewish people that He made, there has to be the rejoicing of the Yidden and the ones who made Him. That's the avoid of the Yidden in the state of a receiver. In a total devotion, they becomes totally bottled, completely sublimated Hashem. That has to do with rejoicing with the one who made it. The idea of joy that breaks through barriers. What's the joy breaking through barriers? How does that contribute to the point over here? I know this means. Through the joy that breaks through the barriers, he leaves behind his boundaries and his limitations, and therefore he can devote himself entirely to godliness. Through this, it's accomplished and caused that Hashem rejoices in those who He made, the Yidden. Because a Yid, with his avodah of rejoicing with Hashem, he affected in turn Hashem's rejoicing in him. That's also what's brought down. That Mashiach comes, the Navi Yirmiyahu says that the female will surround, meaning they'll be higher, they will encircle the male. I know this means at this time, the female that's going on the Jewish people is only in the state of a receiver. Avalos Lavi, but in the future, Tia V'Bchinas shall be in a state of Mashpia, Jezai Inyan to the Nekev the Soiv of Gever. That's the idea that the female will encircle and surround the male, Shatia Lamaila Mazacha, that she will be higher than the male. That's what it means, encircle. Moish begashmi is just like in the physical sense. Literally, in space, in area, anything that encircles is bigger than the thing that's being encircled. Okay, beruchni, so to spiritually, that the Jewish people in the Shabbos Yisrael is metaphorically speaking greater, even because the Yidden are kaviyachol being mashpia. So now we're going to get back to what we were speaking about before, that in the sixth bracha it says, the Chasen rejoices, the Chasen is rejoicing, and the Kala with above, versus the seventh bracha, which is referring to the future especially, and is connected with the future, that says with the Kala. He says, just like this matter is spoken about concerning the Jewish people on Hashem. At this time, Knesset Yisrael, the Yidden are in a state of receivers. When Mashiach comes, they'll be in the state of a Mashpia. So too concerning a Chas and the Kala in this physical world down here. Initially, it's rejoicing the Chasen and the Kal. And we said before, the Vav indicates Shachasen, Hu HaMashpia, the Chasen is the one that gives to the Kala, and the Kala is solely a Makabel. Afterwards, it'll be that the Chasen will rejoice with the Kala, that the Kala brings Simcha to the Chasen. That's why specifically it said in the seventh bracha. In the sixth bracha, we said that we're saying Sameach Chasen v'Kala and the Kala. In the seventh bracha, we're talking about the Kala bringing the Chasen to Simcha. That's where we say Sameach Chasen imakal. Because in the seventh bracha is when we mention the five sounds. Like we mentioned earlier, that the seventh bracha is the conclusion and the goal and the purpose of the entire marriage. There's already all the five sounds. We said earlier, it's the drawing down of the infinite power of Hashem into the created beings in their having children, who will have children in turn, and so on, ad infinitum. That's the whole purpose of the wedding. That's why we conclude, we mix rejoice the chasen with the kala. This expression indicates that the kala influences and brings the joy to the chasen. This is the ultimate perfection that will become revealed when Mashiach comes, the greatness of the Kala, what the Kala brings to the Chas. And so too in the analogy concerning Hashem and the Jewish people. We know that Siddur says that during Matan Torah was only the first stage of the wedding. What's called Eirus, betrothal in English, but it doesn't mean engagement. It means the first stage where the Chasen gives the Kala the ring. There's still not the internal and intimate closeness of the Mashpia with the Makabel. That's the state of Eirus. It's only a ring. It's an external expression of closeness. So the same thing by Matan Torah is like an external expression of connection and closeness of Hashem and the Yidden. Therefore, the advantage and quality of the Jewish people is not recognizable in the time of after Matan Torah. Love as opposed to future times when Mashiach comes, then it will be the time of the conclusion of the marriage. It's the most intimate and inner connection and closeness of the Mashpiyat and the Makabel. Zaiti and the Keres Miles Knesset Yisrael, then it will be recognizable the advantage and quality of Knesset Yisrael. Indian the Nekeva the Soiv of Gever. That's the idea that then when Mashiach comes, the female will encircle the male, meaning that higher level. Hine Oizvav Benegel HaKadosh Baruch Hu Knesset Yisrael concerning Hashem and the Jewish people. Nisbar Le'el Sivdal that was explained earlier in Oizdalet, in the Yismach Havaya B'Maisav, the idea that Havaya rejoices in his actions, meaning the Jewish people. Knesset Yisrael Payeles Umashpas Hasimcha L'Mayla, that the Hashem rejoices because the Yidden caused and affected and influenced that there should be joy above. But how does that accomplish? Nasai in the Yisrael Ba'Yisrael, this is accomplished through the Jewish people rejoicing in Hashem. Shezoya Avodah the Knesset Yisrael B'Chinas Mekabel Shenas B'Zman Hazeh B'Chinas Eirus. That's the avodah of the Yid who are in a state of receivers. That occurs these days. That it's only the time of the Eirus and the first stage of the Kiddush in the giving of the ring. So too it's concerning the chosn and kala down here below, a human chosn and kala. Though at present the chosn is the one that's the giver and the kala is the receiver, still in all. There also has to be service from the perspective of the kala. Her avoida isn't being a receiver. In what way? So he explains. This is also what we find. Though these days there's only the sound and the voice of the chos, and not the sound of the kala, that's not to be found at present. That's the reason why it's the chosen that says, Harei at mikudeshesli, you are now mikudesh to me, you are now married to me. Kala shesekes. The kala has to be silent because it's not yet come the time of Mashiach times where the kala is mashpia. So what type of avodah then is there to kala? Kalmakim still in all. Tzarechli is inyan shel avodah gametz the kala. There also has to be avodah from the perspective of the kala. The kala needs to agree to the statement of the chosen that you are married to me. That's what it means that the kala is silent. The silence of the kala is not that she's out of the picture, but the silence of the kala is an indication of her agreement. Her silence is the admitting and agreement to what the chosen said. But that itself is an avodah. Her avodah is only in the acceptance and agreement. It's an avodah where she is in a state of a makabel, of a receiver. So that's her avodah. And when she does that now, that through that, and when Mashiach comes, will be the voice of the kala to such a degree. That the kala will influence the chosen, like we said before, that the kala will now bring to the chosen something that wasn't there before because Nekeva they said Gev. Now the Rebbe is going to connect it to women and to Purim and Pesach with their special connection that women have with Purim and Pesach. Zayin, Vayram, Mizel, and Shev Nois Yisrael, the lesson for this, for Jewish women and girls, though the Chazal say it is the custom of a man to conquer. He goes out and he conquers. A woman's place is in the home. She's not outside conquering. That doesn't mean they shouldn't be doing anything. That doesn't mean complete silence. But rather, just like we said before, that the avodah of the kala is to be a makabel, so too here, there is necessary to be the avodah of Jewish women and daughters. that the Jewish women and daughters should also be involved in educating the young. The way how women do the avodah of education is not in a way of war, because we said a man's way is to conquer. He does things in a way of war, battle. But a woman's way is the soft touch. She does things in a way of closeness. And there's a unique lesson specific to the women from these days that we find ourselves in. Standing in the days between Purim and Pesach, on the first of all, Nes Purim, the miracle of Purim, by Esther Amalka, came through Esther the queen. Therefore, she's mentioned in the Megillah when we attribute the whole miracle. She's mentioned before Mordechai. Like it says, Esther Amalka Gomer. Esther Amalka wrote the entire story of Purim. Mordechai Yehudi and Mordechai the Jew. Like we said before, you remember the and means it's secondary, it's ancillary. In the Megillah, Esther is the one that transcribed it. And Mordechai also. She did her avodah out of self-sacrifice. Because she herself, even since she was in the royal household, she wasn't lacking anything. Skip the parentheses. She totally sacrificed her life. She risked her life for the Jewish people. And her avodah was in the way of education. This is why she told Mordechai, go gather all the Jews that are found in Shushan. That means to gather and collect all of them. This happens not in the way of a war, but in the way of love and closeness, to bring even the children closer to Yiddishkeit. So we see the woman's role in Purim, in education, etc. How concerning Pesach? Yeah, Pesach, Amr Chazal, concerning Pesach, Chazal said, in the merit of the righteous women, that was in that generation of Yitzias Mitzrayim, Niglu Yisrael Mitzrayim, the Jewish people redeemed from Egypt. They are the ones that established and gave birth and set up a generation, that their generation, the children, were the ones that recognized the Eibishter first on the Yam Suf, and they proclaimed Zek Kelev Aveyu Lifnei Kol Bnei Yisrael. Prior to all the Jewish people, the children that the Jewish woman educated and gave birth to, etc., were the ones that came, that were brought about through the first. They were the first ones to recognize everything. They recognized Hashem before Moshe Rabbeinu at the Yam Suf, B'Shevet Levi Kulai, and even before the entire Shevet Levi, which is very surprising. Though the tribe of Levi was not involved in the enslavement of Egypt, like we know, and the children, on the other hand, were born and educated in the state of the difficulty of the enslavement. Despite that, they recognized Hashem even before Moshe and the entire Shevet Levi. That is the lesson for all the exiles. All the exiles are called by Chazal under the general name Mitzrayim. And just like in Mitzrayim, the Jewish women did this. This is true in all the exiles. That the Jewish women and girls have to assist in the avodah of education, to educate and to make grow a generation that they will recognize Hashem first. A generation that will have a recognition in godliness. They will recognize godliness with their senses. And how does that happen? They need to educate them through the inner part of the Torah, through teaching them Chassidus. And then they will truly be able to recognize godliness. Through the Jewish women and daughters will do their avodah now in the state of being a receiver. Zai, then through this Niska, Legula Asida, we will merit the future redemption. Just like the redemption from Mitzrayim was in the merit of the righteous women, like it says, like your days going out of the land of Mitzrayim, I will show you wonders. So if the redemption from Mitzrayim was through Jewish women, so too Mashiach's redemption will be through Jewish women. Because the Indian in the cave with the slave of Geber, then it will be the idea that the woman encircles the man. In the future redemption that's going to come speedily in our day.
Beautiful, beautiful. To have Simcha